Well, welcome, Gabriel Pina, to our Wyoming Tribune Eagle editorial board interview process. Thank you for agreeing to visit with us, and thanks for running for City Council in Ward 3 this year. We appreciate that. For those listening at home, I'm Brian Martin. I'm the managing editor here at the Tribune Eagle, and we have two of our community reps with us. I'll let them introduce themselves.
I'm Sharon Fain, a community representative, and I work for Black Hills Energy.
Bob Feck, and I work at the animal shelter.
Again, thanks for agreeing to meet with us for a 30-minute interview. And so we want to jump right in. What specific issues or concerns caused you to run for the City Council this year?
The specific issues I found were a lot of the ordinances are out of date. And when I first got interested in wanting to run, at that time, nobody was really doing anything about it. Since then, one city council member has started going through and started cleaning the stuff up, but it's something that needs to be done to get cleaned house. The other thing was the city administrator vote that went through. That was one of the issues that I saw. It was poorly written. There wasn't enough information to give the voters a good, clear direction on how it was going to work. And I felt that if it was done better and given more details, it could have gone through and won. So I want to be an active city council member. I want to be somebody who's going to be up there supporting the voters, someone who's going to be not only active in the diocese, but also active in the community.
If I may.
Mm-hmm.
So would you bring back a request to the voters for a city administrator?
I don't know if I would or wouldn't. I would have to see how the new mayor would work and see how that functionality is. I believe the whole issue of why we had that come about was because of our current mayor.
And Gabriel, which ordinances are out of date? What do you think? What have you seen? What have you experienced?
Well, the one hot topic that I have is the parking ordinances downtown. There are two ordinances downtown. One is for 2-hour parking, and the other one is for face parking. And that one I've been fighting since November. I've spoken with the city attorney about it a couple months ago, and he's agreeing that it is not the right ordinance for what we have or what we need. And he said we need to work with the parking survey that's happening right now and let that go through.
Thank you.
Gabriel, what qualifications do you bring to the table that you think would help you to serve as a good council member?
Well, I'm a community person. I like to get involved. I like to be part of the solution and not just complain about the issues. The other thing was before I started my own business, I was a human resource manager. So I understand employees, I understand wages, I understand policy and procedures. And then in my current role as a self-employed, I am an accountant, so I understand budgets and money and how to work it. So everything's getting taken care of.
Have you ever held public office before?
No.
But you were very engaged, I know, with several local groups.
Yes.
Serving
yes,
as
I am.
treasurer.
Yes.
Great.
And what made you want to get involved with those organizations again in your short time here? What do you see as the reason for doing that, and how would that change or expand if you were a council member?
Well, I look at when I look at getting involved in an organization, I look at something where I have a passion in. So the reason I got involved in the DDA was because that's where my office is. So with that said, I wanted to be engaged in the community around me where I was going to spend the majority of my time. and watch it grow. I heard a lot of grumbling when I first started with the DDA of very negative aspect of them. It's since turned around greatly. And so my goal with them is just to make sure that we are bringing a great economic development to the downtown area.
Dr. Rennie was recently named the president of the board.
That's correct.
of the DDA.
He was voted as the president.
Do you think there's any conflict of interest there between city council member being the president of the DDA board? Or do you think that's a good relationship to have?
With our current bylaws, it states there is no provision that the city council representative cannot hold any kind of executive office. He was the only one that spoke up and said he wanted to serve as president.
And the previous president, do we know why he departed?
Hans resigned due to the fact that he's getting married, he's building his business, and he's been at it for the last 3 years. So
He's done his time, right?
he's done a lot for us.
Gabriel, what do you believe is the biggest challenge facing the city of Cheyenne right now?
Right now, I believe is the perception. There is a lot of negativity when it comes to the city and city entities. We need to rebuild the trust back with the residents. And with that, we need to be able to be accountable. We need to give the right image, and we need to be able to work for the people. People are not happy with the parking study, how much we're spending on that. People weren't happy with the relationship between the mayor and other groups out in the community. People aren't happy with how things are working in the planning department. The staff isn't happy with the wages. So I believe that this year there's going to be a lot of change up on the diocese. And I hope that the right people get voted in to make those right changes to make people happy again.
So that beyond that perception issue or the interface with the public, what do you see as maybe one or two other things that are top priorities if you were, or for the city right now?
Well, potholes is the biggest one. And really, at the last community of the whole meeting, Vicki Nemechek, mentioned that filling the potholes just a Band-Aid. We really need to take millions of dollars and build our streets again. And we need to really go out and do that and figure out how we're going to do that. Instead of putting $100,000 into potholes, we need to put a couple million into the streets and rebuild them and make them better.
Any other issues?
Off the top of my head, that's the biggest one right now.
What about abandoned buildings downtown? What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any ideas on how to solve that problem?
Yeah, I'm actually working with a task force right now. We just started meeting. So we are working on creating an abandoned building coalition that will make property owners be placed on a registry, a one-time or a fee to start, and then for as long as it's abandoned, they have to pay a monthly fee. And we're like I said, we're just starting that out.
Sir, you mentioned that there's a lot of negativity and we must work to rebuild the trust of people.
Mm-hmm.
So Parks and Recreation, Fire Department, Police Department, there's a number of city departments. Do you think that those departments and those department heads do not worry about this, or that they're not doing what they should be doing to build relationships with the community?
I don't think it's department heads. I think it's the aspect of the city. You look at what happened at the community of the whole of the last meeting where the person that went and spoke for the police officers, they requested that they take the two spots for that the city said hire 2 more people. We don't want to hire the 2 more people. We want to give our police officer raises. So we're willing to go without 2 extra officers to give those people raises. And then somebody else from within the organization, the police officer organization, said, I think that's a great idea, but why just the peace officers? Why not the whole department? I've had Board of Public Utility employee ask me, why are we not getting raises? We handle our own budget. Why can't we get the raises? So I've also spoken to somebody in planning. Again, same thing. Our wages are not compatible. We need to do something different to make our employees happy, to make them want to stay in Cheyenne, so they will continue the job that they've done. We've lost a lot of good people over the last year that I've seen.
So would you support maybe across the board wage increases for city employees in despite of the budget downturn?
There needs to be something. I don't know if it's across the board. As an previous HR manager, I always looked at matrices and creating those matrices to figure out who are the ones that deserve the raises, who are the ones that the key people within the departments that we need to make sure that they're happy and they stay happy, so they stay and they don't leave. We need to make sure that we are keeping everyone at peace and where they're not looking for something else.
Gabriel, can you share with us your vision for Cheyenne? You've been here for a little while now, so what does your vision for an ideal Cheyenne look like, and then how would you help us get there?
So I put when I interviewed Channel 5, they asked me if I had a slogan. So I thought about that, and I picked one and said taking Cheyenne to the next level. And I got made fun of on one of the other places for that. They said, well, what is this, an 80s video game? When I moved to Cheyenne, my wife was working at Home Depot, and we lived on the east end of town. So I would drive all clear across Lincoln Way and take her to Home Depot. And I was just in awe of downtown. And at that time, I knew I wanted to be downtown and I wanted to work downtown. I have seen so much growth downtown with new businesses coming in, buildings starting to fill up to where there are people outbidding each other for a space. I want to see that continue to grow. I want to see, I don't want to see vacant buildings. I don't want to see vacant second floors. We have a lot of storefronts on the bottom, and then the second and upper floors are just empty. I want to see those filled. I want to see the Kohl's shopping center redone and filled. I want to see something done with the hitching posts. Tear it down, rebuild it, do something instead of just letting it sit there. We have a lot of property here that could be used for other things, recreation centers. I'd love to see the Children's Museum get built and done. That way the kids could take advantage of that and families could fill it. Schools can have their field trips there, or they don't have to go all the way down to Denver or Colorado or Casper or wherever they're going. I want to be able to have these things here in our city so we don't have to be traveling outside our realms for things.
And Gabriel, to follow up on the Children's Museum, what are your thoughts on potential for taxpayers funding the construction versus their continued efforts to bring in private financing?
Well, I think that they need to continue trying to seek private financing. And I think they should take it to a vote and let the voters decide if they want to do the tax or not. I don't think it's up to one person or one entity to say, no, you can't do this. If the voters want it, then let's do it. We need to be able to make things happen. And I'll go with the DDA did a vote for a mill levy increase last year. Our mill levy was at 10 mills for the property owners downtown. And it was at a point where it was going to expire. So we took a vote, and one of the members of the audience, who is the property owner downtown, suggested that we do 30 mills. Well, the board decided on 20 and to take for a vote. So the vote was either 20 mills or 0. And the property owners voted for the 20 mills. We need to let the property owners and the people of the community vote on these things.
So if you had a choice on the Children's Museum of 20 million on the ballot for developing where they want to, which is the whole, or 5 million to build someplace else, which of those would you favor?
I don't know if that's a fair question, because I don't think the 20 million versus 5 million have to do with where the location is. I think the 20 million has to do with the design of the building. So regardless of where it's going to be located, it's still going to be 20 million.
Well, the Tribune Eagle ran an article that there are a couple of other locations with existing buildings that might not cost as much as the 20 million in downtown. So do you favor it downtown, or do you favor it just being built in general?
I think that they put a lot of hard work on where they're at. They own the property where it's at. Why would the city sell them the property just to say, we don't want you here, we want you to move somewhere else? You know, the city asked them to build that fence there. They've asked them to do things. They've improved the lot. They've cleaned it out. They're going to have a concert series there this summer. We need to support that.
You mentioned a few things, Gabriel, including redeveloping some commercial property, but what do you think the community in Cheyenne doesn't have that it needs? And how would you go about getting that for Cheyenne?
That is in the eye of the beholder. I've been hearing for years, or as long as I've lived here, we don't have enough for the up and coming generation. Or I need to go down to Colorado to do things. I think that's false. We have a lot of things here that are opportunities here for us to do, but it's up to the eye of the beholder. I moved from San Diego. There is anything and everything I wanted to do there, and I moved here. I don't have a problem with a lot of the things I do here. It is my family. You know, yeah, I go down to Colorado to watch a baseball game, but is Cheyenne going to have a baseball team, a professional major league one? I don't think so.
Right.
It's all in the eye of the beholder. You know, we got our third brewery coming in. We have a whole bunch of events. We just had Comic-Con. We're having a tattoo convention with an arm wrestling, regional arm wrestling competition coming in. We got this big car show coming through town, July 22nd. So there are a ton of different events. If you think there's something here that you don't see that you want, then you need to make it happen.
Just to follow up on that, depending on who you talk to, people have different opinions about what Cheyenne should be. And some people are very opinionated that Cheyenne should stay smaller, retain its current flavor, not become a Fort Collins. I've heard that many times.
Mm-hmm.
And then others say, we need it to become more like Fort Collins. We need a more vibrant downtown like they have to keep people here. We shouldn't be sending our money down there. Where do you stand on that argument?
We need a vibrant downtown. Does it need to be exactly like Fort Collins? I don't think so. I mean, we have our own flair, we have our own style, you know. We have the historic aspect of it. I was down in Fort Collins. They got buildings that are for rent. They had homeless out there. I mean, they have the same issues that we have. A little bit more vibrant, a lot more people walking through. But is that because of the different community aspects that are happening? Is that because they have majority of their buildings full? Also, don't they have more land than we do and a lot more space than our downtown area? So is it going to be that big? It can never be that big. But vibrant, yes. And from what I saw a year, 2 years ago, from what I see now, a lot's happened in that time, and we're getting there.
And outside of the downtown, what are your priorities for economic development for Cheyenne? And how would you make that happen?
Like I said, you know, the Coles Center really needs to be developed with Safeway moving out of there. It left a huge hole for that area. Dow Range has a lot there. We need to improve either the light structures or something to get the flow of traffic through that area a little bit better. The south side needs to be revibrated, just like the downtown does. There are a lot of older buildings there that really could use some makeovers. I would love to see the south side really grow more and look really nice for the community down there. They're starting to get things going, but that's another area that could really grow.
So the first one you mentioned was the Cole Shopping Center.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's private property.
Yep.
So how do you say we need more business here? We need to get these shops back open. What do you do?
Well, we contact Safeway and we find out what their plan is. You know, is their plan to tear it all down and rebuild it? Is their plan is just to keep it vacant? Is their plan is to sell it? We need to contact them. We need to find out what their plan is, and we need to work with them to make it grow and build something in there. We can't just let it sit on our hands. We got to start making those phone calls, and we need to start bugging them about making this happen.
The last 8 years, one person has been responsible for the budget. And then after the budget's been developed, they've unveiled it to the city council. What are your thoughts on that current process? And do you think that in the future it should be more collaborative from the get-go?
I think a budget of the city where it's not just the mayor's responsibility, but city council's responsibility. So I think there needs to be a lot more collaboration with that. I know Lois and her team do a great job on putting that budget together and working with the department heads. The question is, how do we make it where 9 people are part of that process also? Do we create a subcommittee to work with the finance department? Do all nine of them work with the finance department? What is the best streamlined aspect to make that happen? And I think that's where we need to talk to the finance department to make sure they're not overwhelmed with 9 people looking over their shoulders.
Gabriel, how do you feel about the development of the Belvoir Ranch and what's happened up to this point, and what do you feel needs to happen going forward? The city bought this property several years ago, and they've done a few things, and the city's benefited in some ways from water and those sort of things, but there's a growing feeling that there should be more recreation on that property. Where do you weigh in, and how do you think we should do that if it's a priority?
Well, it's been a sore in a lot of people's mouths for years because of the way that it was purchased, what it was purchased for, and then now we can't use it for that avenue. So what do we do with this land? Do we sell it? Do we rebuild it, and do we make it a recreational portion? We need to make sure that we're doing what's best for the city. We're also need to make sure that it's not going to be another line item budget that we're funding every year, like the Civic Center and the ice rink. We need to make sure that's going to be self-sufficient and we're not having to put money into it every year. That it's actually making a profit for the community. If we can actually make it into a money generated property, then I say we go gangbusters and make it that. If it's not, and we're gonna have to subsidize it every year, then I think they need to sell it.
With that, do you think that they need to consider selling the Civic Center and the ice rink if it doesn't turn a profit?
I think they need to hire the right people in there to make it work. The Civic Center had 13 shows from January till the end of last month. That's unacceptable to me. I mean, I don't think enough shows are being played.
So you think, okay.
Why are artists only in there for one performance? Why are not in there for Friday night, Saturday matinee, Saturday evening, and Sunday matinee? You know, why are we only giving them one performance? There needs to be more in there. We need to make that work better.
So you feel that the reason they're not turning profit is mismanagement at the ice rink and the Civic Center?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
What are your priorities for the next six-penny ballot as we head into what looks like an early 2017 vote? What projects would you like to see on that next ballot?
Well, I haven't seen what they've worked on yet, and I've asked for that information and haven't gotten an answer yet about that. So I want to wait to see what they're looking at, their priorities, and looking at what they have. Top priority though, I don't have one off the top of my head. The top priority, I really feel that we need to be working on our streets before we really start working on smaller projects.
The city currently has a contract with the United Way to disperse some city funds to nonprofit agencies. Are you, and they do that so that every nonprofit doesn't come before the city council and ask for money. It's a more streamlined process. But do you support the concept or not support the concept of city money going to nonprofit agencies?
So is this money coming out of the employee's check? Because the way that I've understood the United Way to work is they give an option for a company, in this instance, the company would be the City of Cheyenne, for the employees to take a percentage out of their check and give to the United Way, and then United Way can disperse it into their nonprofits that they support. Is that the way that it's working?
Well, the city does allow the United Way to do that, just like many employers do. But this is taxpayer money that the city directly puts to the United Way for the purpose of funding CAMIA, partially funding Safe House, partially funding Needs Incorporated. There's about 26 agencies that receive funding through the United Way, and many of them receive city and county funds that are a budgeted line item in the city budget or the county budget.
So it's far beyond than what the employees give.
Yes.
Okay. We need to be supporting our nonprofits, and I don't know if do you know how much that line item is that the city gives?
Not off the top of my head, no.
I'll look in the city budget on that one, but I've heard a practice like this where other cities do give out money to nonprofits in the community, not necessarily through the United Way, but they have a vetting process where they have the nonprofits individually go through. But we need to be supporting our nonprofits, and we need to be doing that. Depending on how much that line item is would determine my answer of, is it pennies on the dollar or is it a huge dollar amount that we're looking at?
Gabriel, we only have a couple more minutes, but I wanted to ask you about the possibility of an anti-discrimination ordinance for Cheyenne. Where do you stand on that issue? Do you feel like Cheyenne needs one? And if so, how soon is it needed? What does it look like to you?
Our state constitution states that all men are created equal and supposed to be treated equal. With that said, our federal and state governments do not have any type of law or ordinance that protect all classes in the U.S. And these labels of classes are getting larger by the day. I believe if we do have a non-discrimination ordinance, it needs to cover every man, woman, child, no matter what. I personally am tired of being labeled, having labels, having these classifications. We all need to be treated equally, no matter who or what you are. As long as this ordinance covers all, then I am in favor for it. It also needs to come across into the person. This has to be like a mediator, has to be the person who is going to tell us if there was something illful intent of discrimination happened. I don't feel this should fall under the mayor, the city council. It needs to be somebody who is trained and hired to perform these types of mediations.
So as we wrap up, is there anything specific that we didn't ask you about that you'd like to mention to us before we finish?
Well, I love Cheyenne. I chose to live here. I've enjoyed my time here. The people are great. I just want to be that active person, a person that is going to be part of the solution, somebody who's going to support and go after and take care of things. I'm not going to just sit up there 4 times a month and collect my check. I will be an active board member, and city council person, and somebody who's there for the people and not just for my own personal views.
Thanks again for taking the time to be with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.